Hey everyone, welcome back to Is It True? The channel where we uncover the facts, challenge perceptions, and dive deep into controversial topics. Today, we're talking about Luigi Mangione, who's facing terrorism charges for the December 4th murder of Brian Thompson. Some see him as a hero, but New York prosecutors believe he committed an act of terrorism. So is he a terrorist or a hero? Before we dive in, it's important to note that Luigi Mangione is presumed innocent until proven guilty. It's up to the state to provide evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Luigi is the same person seen in the videos. Luigi Mangione faces charges in New York, Pennsylvania, and at the federal level. Federal charges include stalking murder using a modified firearm and other firearms-related offenses. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Pennsylvania charges include forgery, carrying a firearm without a license, and providing false ID. New York charges include murder in the first degree, multiple counts of weapon possession, and forgery. At his New York arraignment, Luigi pled not guilty to 11 state charges, including first-degree murder in furtherance of terrorism. Why is he facing terrorism charges? In New York, first-degree murder requires an aggravating factor like terrorism. Prosecutors argue Luigi's actions were intended to intimidate or coerce a group and influence government policy. New York's anti-terrorism law, passed just days after 9/11, allows terrorism charges for crimes aiming to intimidate civilian populations or influence government policies by intimidation or coercion. Let's take a look at some examples of the anti-terrorism laws in action for comparison. First up, the 2009 plot against Bronx synagogues. 4 men were convicted for planning to bomb synagogues in the Bronx and shoot down military planes. They were charged under state terrorism laws for attempting to use weapons of mass destruction and conspiracy to commit murder as an act of terrorism. 2017 Manhattan truck attack. Sayfullo Saipov was charged with terrorism-related offenses after driving a truck down a bike path in Lower Manhattan, killing 8 people. He faced federal terrorism charges, including providing material support to ISIS. 2016 Chelsea bombing. Ahmad Khan Rahimi was charged with terrorism offenses after detonating a bomb in the Chelsea neighborhood, injuring 30 people. Based on those examples, Luigi's case doesn't fit the usual definition of terrorism, but without clear guidelines, the courts can still charge him as a terrorist. Let's look at an example of a case that didn't qualify. In 2007, Edgar Morales, a gang member, was convicted under the anti-terrorism statute for a shooting that killed a child. Prosecutors argued that gang violence intended to instill fear in a community qualified as terrorism. However, in 2012, the Court of Appeals overturned Morales' conviction, ruling that gang-related violence didn't meet the law's intent. The court emphasized that terrorism must involve an intent to influence government policy or coerce civilian populations, not just instill fear through criminal activity. Judge Victoria Grafeo wrote, "Expanding the definition of terrorism risks diluting its meaning and undermining the law's purpose." Another judge called it a profound misapplication of the statute, warning that applying it too broadly trivializes genuine acts of terrorism. Does this apply to Luigi? Prosecutors argue Luigi's alleged targeting of a high-profile CEO, premeditation, and a notebook outlining hostility toward the healthcare industry shows an intent to intimidate insurance executives and influence industry policy. Critics, however, say this case doesn't clearly align with the intent of the law. Like the Morales case, They argue it's more about public fear than coercion or policy influence. Former prosecutors also warn that the terrorism charge could backfire, as it opens the door to evidence about Luigi's motives, potentially leading to jury sympathy. So, is it true? In my opinion, calling this terrorism is a stretch. As we've seen in the Morales case, applying this charge too broadly can weaken its meaning and effectiveness. Luigi's actions, if found guilty, were violent and illegal, but more evidence about his motive is needed to justify the terrorism charge. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into today's most controversial stories.